This hour is called Talk Compliance in association with Tally Solutions. Right now we have CA Swamy and CA Aakriti in our studios from Baker Tilly, Middle East.
Right. So we are going to discuss about how to incorporate a startup in the UAE, and then we'll move forward to what to do once the business is live. Now, quickly, आपको हम आकृति के बारे में बताते हैं. Now, she has over 12 years of specialized experience in risk management and internal controls, due diligence, valuations, mergers and acquisitions, internal audit, external audit. And also, आपको हम बताते हैं about NTC के बारे में. So, Swamy sir has value chain transformation, transfer pricing, mergers and acquisition, due diligence, foreign trade policy, international corporate taxes, VAT, GST, excise and customs, strategy implementation, leadership, tax policy ka experience of over 20 years. So once again, welcome to the show, and we're going to have an extensive discussion. So good morning once again.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Pleasure to be on the show.
Well, we also have Aakriti Mago now. She's a partner of the same very company that we're talking about. First things first, the subject is very interesting. How to incorporate a startup in the UAE. We'll start off with that question first. Aakriti, would you like to take it, or Swamy sir, would you like to take it?
I'll take that one. Thank you so much. So I think I'll just start by just highlighting why UAE is such a great jurisdiction for startups. Given that it's so optimally placed, it's a sweet point between Asia and Africa, links beautifully to the US and Europe, and UAE as a market has grown immensely over the last 15 years. There are so many Gigi startups now, so many tech startups now, and the beautiful bit about UAE is that it's such a beautiful mix of cultures. It's a melting pot. So the opportunities available here in terms of the target market, the products, services is immense, and that's why I think UAE is a great startup destination, and can be possibly compared to startup destinations such as India and Singapore and Hong Kong.
But the cost of doing business is some bit of it that a lot of people are concerned about. Your thoughts on that, Swamy sir?
It's in terms of the overall cost, I would leave it to Aakriti. In terms of tax cost, it's definitely very, very competitive.
Correct. Yes.
If you look at the tax cost, it's 9%. Even within the region, it's though with all the global commitments, keeping up to the global commitments, at the same time having that 9% rate of tax, and that too on a slab which is above 375,000 is when it gets taxed at 9%. So startups which generally may not have profitability in the initial period, and they raise it's approximately USD 100,000, right? So
right.
There is a question in terms of, okay, you will pay taxes only when you
Start
earn
earning
profits.
profits.
Right. And moving forward, now, what are those aspects that an entrepreneur must consider when entering the market? And this, we're talking about this as a phase one, right? We have 3 phases, and this being part of the phase one.
If you are providing a service or a product, you need to make sure that does this product or service already exist? Who is my competition? UAE as a market has 17,000 startups.
Wow.
And all of these startups are in 3 sort of major industries. They are either providing a service that tends to, ease the common man's daily troubles. So, for example, Washman, second largest startup in the UAE. Basic laundry services, but with a concept that works for today's generation. The people who go to work, who want an easy bit where someone can just pick up your laundry, send you a bill, everything is done digitally through their app. They have subscription plans. So I think the most important thing is to see what your target audience needs.
Right.
Second sort of point, very important point, is to also assess what are your costs. There are a lot of options, and I think I'll touch base upon this as the show progresses. There are a lot of options for startups. Setting a business in UAE need not be extensively expensive or even administratively difficult. The federal government has a lot of initiatives which makes startups, be it from a funding perspective, starting business, banking perspective, a lot more easier than what it was 10 years ago. But I would say that, just make sure that you have an awareness of your costs, your future budget, your resourcing. And also, I think one of the most important aspects is deciding what type of legal structure you want to adopt, so that later on, as your startup grows and you wish to sort of have an angel investor or sell that startup or that idea, it's very easy to do so.
Right. And how does a CA play a role where startup is concerned? I mean, how do you take them through their journey?
So I think the most important aspect of anyone starting a business, be it a startup or an SME or even a multinational that's coming to a new jurisdiction, is to sort of understand the market. So what essentially a chartered accountant or a consultant in this field can assist you with is that they help you understand the market, the nuances that the market comes with in terms of, like Swamy mentioned, what are the tax regulations, what are the compliance regulations. We also sort of help you understand what are the requirements to set up the business, right? What documentation is needing, how long does it take? Now, information is available on Google, press of a button,
right,
but it need not be the most accurate information.
Right.
So I think that's where a professional plays a very important role, that we corroborate what's on the internet, but also let you know the realities of doing business.
Absolutely. Talking about the legal and the tax landscape in UAE, when a startup business wants to venture into, it's very important that they have all these clarity, right? The free zone and the mainland, and it all starts from there. So this is where you guide the entrepreneurs?
Yes, it's in terms of as Aakriti mentioned, entity structure itself. First, it's whether you want to go as a free zone company, mainland company,
because it
or
has
you want to,
implications, right?
True, it has tax implications. It'll have implications from the future prospects as well. Let's say a startup which is looking at not just UAE as the market. If they are looking at in the region, entire region, want to spread to the entire region in the next couple of years, or want to global, then the entity structure, and at the same time in terms of what are the aspects in terms of the compliances that needs to be looked at, how the systems and the processes have to be in place. It's most of the startups are technology based, right? It's having that, helping them in terms of looking at the future and then guiding them in terms of what are the best practices that you can look at, not necessarily just from the tax, but from the overall, let's be it in terms of the feasibility, market feasibility, in terms of having the systems, processes, having a trusted advisor is something that is important. That's where we come in.
Superb, yeah.
Right. So is there a particular way that one can calculate profit margin for a startup?
There is.
It's not one way. There are multiple ways.
That's how you get investors, right?
That's
This
true.
is the projection of our profit that we can reach and the revenue we can earn. But eventually, then most of the startups end up selling their startup to some bigger companies, right? Tech companies, especially.
It's again, it's a different strategies, right? You would want to, as I said, it's whether you were looking at a region as the market or it's global. The idea, the entire startup starts with an idea, right? You are looking at a problem. And you want to come up with a solution for it.
Right.
Someone sitting there will think, okay, this could be the possible solution.
Right.
Not necessarily that you have many buyers for it. Because not many would have looked at the problem first of all.
Correct.
To understand what is the solution.
Right.
So it's a quite a bit of challenging situation in the initial phases for any startup entrepreneur. If you speak to them, it's after 5 years people may recognize them, but when they are starting, it's quite challenging for them to explain. So here is where we come in and tell them that look, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 things that you can do, so that you are able to, of course they will have their own capability, but we will support them with all the other aspects that needs to be looked at, so that over a period of time they will be able to decide whether to keep running and then or whether to bring in the strategic investor or to sell it. It's something, whether to divest, how much to divest, all these aspects is something that the entrepreneurs can evaluate.
Coming to Muriel's question, how does a business know what the projection of or the revenue or the profit? We'll get into that conversation. Agar aapke paas koi bhi sawal, you can send us a WhatsApp. We've got Swamy sir, we've got Aakriti with us, 0586861003.
Talk 100.3.
Daybreak आप सुन रहे हैं. This is Talk Compliance brought to you by Tally Solutions. Do log on to tallysolutions.com. Power of simplicity. You can call 800 Tally as well. Now we are having a discussion with Aakriti and with Swamy sir. Moving on to Aakriti, we would love to know the different options available to startups to set up business in the UAE.
UAE as a jurisdiction is extremely sort of mindful of the startups that are coming up in the region, and for that reason, the government, including free zones and mainland, have various options. And this will be a little bit of a lengthy answer, only so that I can include as much information for our listeners as possible. The first aspect that I want to touch upon is that it's very important for anyone starting up knowing the difference between mainland, free zone, and how that affects. Now, this is something that needs a lot more sort of discussion. So if anyone wishes to discuss this further, please reach out to myself or Swamy. But just to go a little bit into detail about the options that the government has put in perspective for startups specifically. Now, one of the free zones, DMCC, Dubai Multi Commodities Center, has a beautiful sort of hub called Astrolabs, which is a community for tech startups, wherein they have special packages for office space, for your license fees, etc., including a community to network with like-minded tech startups. And there are one of the largest sort of startups in recent times. Pure Harvest was a member of Astrolab. So I think that goes to show that these kind of incubators tend to play a major role in providing that initial support that a startup needs, be it from a compliance perspective, networking, or even simply having someone have that support for you in the initial years. The other option is that there are a lot of smaller free zones, but very economical, very reasonable in the way they operate their requirements, such as IFZA. Administratively very easy to set up, very minimal requirements. All the processes, all the forms, etc., are digitized. So with the current scenario of how the world around us operates, everything needs to be easy, needs to be at the touch of your fingers, and I think this plays a major role there. The other options available by other major free zones, there is a free zone called DIFC, which is a regulated free zone. They have an innovation license, a Hive program, specifically so for startups that are in the tech aspect again. Apart from that, mainland itself, Dubai Economic Department, they also have an e-trader license, which is also sort of prevalent in the free zone with Dubai Development Authority, wherein they offer you freelance licenses, specifically so for people in creative field. So if you're a makeup artist, you're a content creator, you are into direction, acting, etc., and you don't want to have that initial cost of starting a large business, and you just want a freelance license, you can do so through the e-trader license or through the freelance license that is available with DDA as well as Dubai South. And the beauty of such licenses is that they come with minimal administrative requirement, minimal startup requirements, and also they do not require a major investment. So a freelance license can cost you anywhere between 6.5 to about 7,000 dirhams overall. And this comes with the benefit of you self-sponsoring yourself, so that issue of whose visa do I need to be on is also sorted. So these are some of the examples of options available for startups.
And it's a fantastic elaborate explanation as well. Swamy sir, it also depends that no matter whatever visa you're on, if you're doing business, you are bound to come under the purview of corporate tax.
That's true. It's any business or business activity that are carried out by individuals or at anyway corporates, we know that corporates are subject to corporate tax. Even as an individual or a natural person, if you are carrying out any business or business activity and the revenue from those activities exceed 1 million AED, then it will be subject to corporate tax. However, there are certain exceptions. What doesn't include in this 81 million is that it's your wages, your personal investments, and the real estate investments. So excluding that, if your revenue is beyond 1 million, then the corporate tax is something that will be applicable. Again, there are more to it. As we move forward, we'll speak about it.
Right, but Golden Visa has also been mentioned time and over again, and it's quite a lucrative offer for people to come in and invest in the country. Now, Aakriti, could you put a light on this subject as to how entrepreneurs can get more out of this?
Absolutely. Golden visa again is apart from corporate tax, likely is one of the hot topics now in the UAE jurisdiction. Now there are various aspects in which you can get your golden visa, but I think from anyone that's looking to start up or to sort of venture out from their 9 to 5 and now become an entrepreneur, I think there's a beautiful option now where you can, if you earn more than 30,000 dirhams, you can apply for golden visa while you are on your current employment. Once you get your visa, you're free to continue your employment, plan your future startup, your entrepreneurial venture, and as and when you feel comfortable to move out, you simply have to cancel your labor requirements with your employer, and you're free to start your business.
Right, absolutely. The conversation is getting interesting. We will slip into a quick little break, but when we get back, we are going to be asking them about the government initiatives and the benefits for the startup in the UAE.
Talk 100.3.
Welcome back to Daybreak with Vivek, Sunil and myself, Muralisa. We're still in conversation with CA Aakriti and CA Swamy from Baker Tilly, Middle East, and we are talking to them about government initiatives and the benefits for startup. But before that, I want to open this question up to Aakriti, saying what is the right way to move forward where a startup is concerned? As in, I have an idea, but what do I do from there? How do I go
Even if
about
I don't
things?
have an idea, how do I?
An idea can strike at any time.
Right.
You could be in the middle of nowhere and think that, okay, this is what I need, and perhaps this is what a lot of other people would need as well. I think a very valid question. A lot of people want to do something on their own. They want to be their own boss, but they don't know where to start and how to start. Like I've mentioned, from the very beginning of the talk show, that UAE as a market has, because it's so vast and so diverse in terms of the people who live here, the kind of work that is being done here, the opportunities for anyone who wants to start up their business are massive. I'll just talk about a few initiatives that people who are looking to start up something on their own can possibly be involved in. The first thing that I want to highlight is there is a major startup conference happening in October called North Star. They are looking at about 40,000 delegates, and this is simply like-minded people coming together, discussing ideas. You never know, you can find your next business partner there and work on the idea that has been in your mind for a while. This is just one of the conferences that's happening throughout the year. There are many conferences like these that happen in the UAE, and my advice would be to be on the lookout, attend these conferences. It's a small sort of investment that could potentially lead to a large point for your future. There are a few other aspects such as BNI networking chapters that happen. Anyone can join it. Open forum, great panel for discussing ideas. I would also like to sort of point out that Tally also does a lovely networking session called SMB Pulse that a lot of professionals or individuals who are looking to start up can join and take benefit of such sessions. So I think the market is vast. Do your research, look for such events, look for such networking opportunities, and this is a great platform to sort of populate and create those ideas that could potentially lead to the next big startup.
And Swamy sir, about the government initiative and the benefits for the startups in UAE?
Quite a lot. As Aakriti alluded to, there are quite a few free zones which are dedicated, right? Apart from that, there are specifically from the accounting and the tax perspective, if I look at it, there's an initiative that has been started by the government that's called Muwafaq, which gives a platform where the accounting or the tax agents, you can reach out, all the SMEs can reach out to the ones listed on the platform. Tally is listed, we are all listed, it's as tax agents. Then it's for the accounting, you can reach out to Tally. Similarly, there are other accounting as well. But then once you reach out to them, you will be able to get a very very competitive rates in terms of their products. Similarly ours, along with so many other tax agents, we are also one of the tax agents listed there. You can use us with those competitive rates. For your benefit. You get a professional advice, you get a very thorough accounting system, very well known accounting system, so that your compliances are something that is taken care.
विच इज़ फैंटास्टिक, ऑफ ग्रेट सपोर्ट. अगर आपके पास भी कोई सवाल स्वामी सर आकृति हमारे साथ है स्टूडियो में, यू कैन सेंड अ व्हाट्सएप 0586861003.
Talk 100.3.
This hour is called Talk Compliance in association with Tally Solutions. Right now we have CA Swamy and CA Aakriti in our studios from Baker Tilly, Middle East. Right now they are talking to us about compliances and the necessary steps to be taken where a business is set up.
So आकृति आपसे जानना चाहेंगे the compliance part of it.
So I think once you've got your business set up and running, it's very important to ensure that any sort of regulatory compliances, specifically so in terms of the UAE laws and regulations are complied with on an annual basis. I think one of the most important things is to make sure that your business is valid and in good standing annually. So renew your license on time, renew your lease on time, ensure that if there are any visas that are due for renewal, get those renewed. And I think from a mandatory compliance point of view, ensure that if you are recruiting any resources under your company, you do provide them with the relevant requirements under the labor law. Apart from that, there are 2 federal laws, and we will speak a little bit more in detail about them later on in terms of your UBO regulations and economic substance. So these 2 are the major compliance regulations that you need to look out for and comply with on an annual basis.
Now let's move on to the tax regulations, the most important part.
Before I come to tax as such, there are a couple of other things. Tax, again, for tax you need to have the accounting system in place, right? So you base your tax, in case of corporate tax, the profits you derive from the accounting aspects. Similarly, for the VAT registration, you need to get VAT registration done. You will have to file VAT returns, whether it's quarterly, monthly, based on your revenues. Then all this data has to come from accounting. So it's important to have a very credible accounting system which can support you on your compliance journey, like a Tally, to be with you, so that you have the required data with you. And then getting the accounts audited. That's for various reasons. Of course, there are limits in terms of the corporate tax. Pretty generous limit. It's from the startup perspective. If I look at it, there may not be a necessity of getting the audit, but then there are other cases where it's important to get the audit done. And similarly, it's in terms of the documentation, you need to have the documentation for filing all this, whether it's the VAT return or the corporate tax return. Then you also have, in terms of as Aakriti mentioned, the ESR regulations or the UBO regulations. So it's important that all your documentation is in place. For startups specifically, there's something called the along the lines of the benefits that we were talking from the government. Right. Government has recognized that there is a need for simplification of some of the requirements. Government has, in the corporate taxes, government has come up with the small business relief. So that's something that could be very, very beneficial. It's in cases where the startups are generating profits and the revenues are within 83 million.
That relief is something that, a lot of small businesses are wanting, that, they don't get to prepare only account statements, but it is absolutely important to keep your business up and healthy. The importance of that we'll talk, but we got a question from Naresh. One of his friends has a plan to open business for IT products. How advisable, or any quick word of advice, Aakriti, for his friend Naresh?
I think in terms of IT products, most important thing is, of course, that's the need of the hour, but make sure that you do your market research in terms of your competitors. It's also healthy to sort of see what your competitors are doing, which free zone are they set up in, what is their procurement cycle. And when you are bringing in any products that you will sell locally, please make sure that you highlight the importance of being registered with VAT. If you cross the threshold, any products that go between free zone and mainland will need to make sure that VAT is appropriately applied and you file your VAT return. So my sort of suggestion and advice would be that just be mindful about where you set up and what your procurement cycle will be, especially when you're dealing with products.
That's his question. Free
Yeah.
zone or mainland? Where should he set up?
That all depends on what his procurement cycle is. Would he be selling inside the UAE? Would he primarily be selling port to port? So for example, getting goods from China, never entering UAE, going directly to your customer, be it in India or Singapore, etc. So the most important thing is to see your procurement cycle, see how the goods would be moving in, and then seek professional advice, because that would then define which zone you need to be in. And just to clarify, and I think Swamy will highlight this later just very quickly, not every free zone from a tax perspective is ideal, because a free zone is separate and a designated free zone is separate. So only designated free zones can take the benefit of the various tax regulations that are prevalent in the UAE. So just being mindful about that as well.
Have those free zones been identified now that will fall under the 0%?
Yes, Swamy, I'll let you take this one.
Specifically with respect to the trading aspect, what we are looking at in terms of the distribution, it's what the government says is the designated free zone for the VAT purposes is what is something that it's identified. But at the same time, the government's clarification part, the clarification, the announcement that came along with the free zone was that you will have to speak to your free zone authority to see whether you are eligible. So more clarity. Of course, there was public consultation document on the entire free zone aspect that was released by the Ministry of Finance. All the people, a lot of people, professionals including us, have provided the comments. We'll have to see how the final regulations or the final clarifications from the Ministry of Finance will come out.
Well, there's also another question. It says, why is it so important to ensure startups keep a record of their transactions? We will get into these details, but after the break.
Talk 100.3.
Welcome back to Daybreak with Vivek, Sanil and myself, Meerul Disa. Still in conversation with CA Aakriti and CA Swamy. We are talking to them about solving business equations where startups are concerned. The next question that I want to, ask the two of you is, where transactions are concerned and startups are concerned, because these are startups, we don't tend to keep a tab on our transactions. Could you stress the importance of the same?
I think very, very, again, a very valid question. Just to begin by saying that, a lot of times, just because we think that it's a small business or it's a business that's just starting, I can sort of overlook the aspect when it comes to accounting or appropriate bookkeeping. My only sort of advice to any startup would be, do not do that. That is the biggest mistake that any startup makes, that they completely ignore their finances, their expenses, their bookkeeping, perhaps until 2 years of operation. That's when they think that, okay, now is the time I need to have an accounting software, or possibly take a part-time accountant and get financials made. As a startup, the most important thing is that your idea or your business can grow exponentially in the first 5 years. So you need to make sure that the finances, the bookkeeping is done accurately, it's immaculate. And the most important thing this is needed for is that any future investor, the minute they look at your business, they look at your idea, they want to know how well you've done in the past, how organized you are in terms of your bookkeeping. And also this sort of forms the baseline of your future projections. So the minute you're looking for an investor, or even something as simple as additional constitutional funding from a bank, from a venture capitalist, from an angel investor, these form the baseline for them to sort of assess whether your business is something they would like to invest in. So my suggestion would be, do not do your bookkeeping and accounting on the back of an envelope. Make sure that you invest into a software. There are many softwares available now that do not require any sort of prior knowledge. It's a simple software. There are softwares that are available on a subscription model, and then there are softwares that are also on a one-time investment, like Tally. You can go for Tally Prime, Tally Silver, depending on your your requirements. And if you're looking for a one-time easy solution, that could be your preferred option. Or if you're looking for a subscription based model, then you can look out for other accounting softwares that are available in the market. But do not ignore the need for good bookkeeping.
Swamy sir, you want to add something on to this in terms of bookkeeping and everything?
I echo what Aakriti mentioned. It's as I said earlier, is in terms of any data for any compliances, right? You need data. Where does the data come from for a business or for a startup? It has to come from your accounting systems. So along with the accounting systems, what you need to have is that considering tax is something that it's now the region tax is new to the region. Considering tax being introduced, so you need to have not just on the accounting aspects, but you need to also have the policies in place, tax policies. It's whether it could be transfer pricing policies or your expense treatment policies or your provisions. How do you treat the provisions? Because these are aspects that there may be divergence. Some of them there could be a divergence from the accounting aspect. You need not necessarily have a policy for the accounting perspective, accounting disclosure, but you need to have this in place so that it's your compliances or your positions that you are taking. Those are certain things which are backed up by the policies that you have.
Right, we'll continue this conversation a bit, after the break.
Talk 100.3.
Welcome back to Daybreak with Vivek, Sanil and myself, Mirudis, are still in conversation with CA Aakriti and CA Swamy. Right now we are in phase 3 and this is the growth phase. So once you've successfully started your company, how do you take it to the next level, Aakriti?
Muriel, I think very important for a business to identify, am I in the growth phase or not? Am I there? Am I at the right stage to now populate my idea to a wider audience? I think 3 things to look at. If you have a thriving customer base, if you've got solid cash flows in terms of you've broke even and you now have profits, and you have a successful management technique going on with your resources, with your products, your services, now is the time when you can look at growing. One of the most important things to make sure before you sort of step into the market and look for investors, be it constitutional or alternative investors, is to make sure that any service, any product that you have, you trademark it. Your intellectual property should be trademarked so that becomes your genuine product, your genuine service. And the other aspect I would suggest is that now is when you look at obtaining hardcore professional advice. Go ahead, get an information memorandum prepared wherein it highlights what the startup is, what you bring to the startup, because at the end of the day, it's your idea, your knowledge, your experience with the startup, and back that with the numbers that you have built upon in the last 3 to 5 years.
So 3 to 5 years is the timeline, and after that we move on to the next level. Is that the case, Swamy sir?
Yeah, generally it's that could be general timeline, but at the same time it depends. It purely depends on the startup, right? Some startup may jump into this. It's within 2 years they are able to crack that code, and then they are on the growth path. So it purely depends on individual startup. It's what's important is that for the information memorandum, information is the data that is collected, it's extracted what you need, right? So we talked about data all the while. Any activity, anything in this growth phase will require the data, and then it's that information, be it in terms of the due diligence, you want an investor to come in, you need to get the due diligence done. All your documentation till now or your compliances till now is something that gets scrutinized at that time. Anybody who is investing into your business, will look at it, right? It's how you are structured. It's you are into the growth path. You are looking at funding. If it's something that is valuable, I'm sure it's most of the startups will have something which is valuable, and then intellectual property. How have you structured that intellectual property? It's in terms of which will give you that wings to grow. As such, it's where you have placed it. It's how you are going to capitalize it, how you are going to utilize that for the further growth. And it's what happens. It's when an investment comes in, whether there will be a capital gains, what will be the tax on it. It's how are you going to deal with the tax grouping? If you have multiple companies, will there be any challenges from the tax grouping aspects? What happens to the tax losses? It's if you're looking at the expansion as such, whether you will be able to. That's something that it's a currency that you have. Just like it's startups, it's any business. If it's a loss, it's under the UAE corporate tax. That's something that can be carried forward. N number of without any limit, but then it's there could be certain restrictions in terms of utilization as such. So all these aspects is something that needs to be considered. Quite a lot of things. It's
it's an endless discussion we can actually get onto. But a quick word of advice for all the startups who are already ventured and trying to make their mark, Aakriti.
I think most important, like I said, make sure that you have immaculate books of records. Be aware of the ever-changing market, and just just burn the midnight oil.
And how
You'll
do
get there.
And how do people get in touch with Baker Tilly Middle East?
So Swamy and my profile and details will be shared on the Instagram page of Talk Radio. Please, you can reach out to us, or else you can reach out to us on info@Baker Tilly. That's BakerTilly.jfc.com. And we hope that this has been an informative session for you all. Thank you for being a great audience. Thank you, Muriel. Thank you, Vivek.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you very much. It's pleasure to be on the show. It's all the while we talked about compliances. There could be a significant cost in terms of non-compliances. I'm sure you're doing a great job educating everyone on the compliances. Thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you both.
Thank you so very much.